What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? Today we're talking with NotJah Witness. If you guys are not subscribed to him, definitely go over there now. I believe he's a former Jehovah's Witness. And so we're going to be talking about how it was growing up like that, and then, what made him leave the faith. And so if you're interested in that, then please stay tuned. All right. Hey there, NotJah. How you doing?
Good, mate. Yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. Now, I know a lot of people may not understand why your voice sounds the way that it does, but could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously, as you mentioned, I am a former Jehovah's Witness, but I do still live with Jehovah's Witness family. My mother and my little brother are both baptized witnesses, and they're both relatively active online. They will do YouTube searches and what have you, even though some Jehovah's Witnesses are told they shouldn't. Especially my little brother, he is very inquisitive. But that aside, even my sort of extended family are kind of more skeptical, and they're more likely to come across my content. And I really don't want any of my content being, or at least if it is shared around amongst my actual family, and if my close family amongst the faith hit it, I don't want them to recognize me easily. So I do use a voice filter, which deepens my voice just a little bit, basically, but that's about it.
Okay.
It's not to hide it from anyone else.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you have to kind of keep that part of you hidden. That you don't feel comfortable just expressing your thoughts on it. So I'm assuming that you grew up Jehovah's Witness, right?
Yeah, I did, absolutely.
Okay, what was that like growing up as a Jehovah's Witness?
For me, it was quite a negative experience. I also grew up disabled and in a small country town, a very hick town, but they were Christian town, but JWs aren't considered Christian there. I grew up, I think I moved out when I was about 16. So up until 16, I was known as that JW kid, amongst other things. So it was always just immediately a negative experience, that on top of the general things that you'd hear from the JWs with witnessing and the demands upon your lifestyle. It's not fun.
So why did they not consider Jehovah's Witnesses Christians?
A lot of other denominations of Christian don't, because of there are different excuses, I suppose, or different reasons, but it's something along the lines usually of not believing in the divinity of the Christ, believing in Christ, or doing something against the sacrifice, something against the actual, what Jesus does for humanity kind of thing. Apparently JWs are completely opposite to that. There are different reasons each time, so it's one or the other depending on which denomination sort of has the reasoning.
There's a lot of atheist YouTubers that were once Jehovah's Witnesses. I mean, we've got Telltale Atheist and Lloyd Evans of the John Cedars channel. I'm just kind of curious. Did any of those affect you, when you started questioning your faith or whatever?
Strangely enough, yes. Eventually they did, but not in an immediate, I didn't go looking for it. It took a long time before I sort of YouTube forced those channels on me, and I finally conceded and went and go, I'll have a look at those videos. And by that point, just because of, I was very acutely aware of where science conflicted with religion, and I swayed on science's side, whereas most people would sway on their religion's side. Even after I left the faith, even though I still had belief in God, I would sway on the side of science. And so I would do a lot of those YouTube searches and like hit a lot of videos that would suggest atheist channels. And originally I would definitely avoid them, and eventually I would not realize they're an atheist channel, and I would see a science topic or something on flat earthers or something. And I didn't know, like, directly, I wasn't thinking that, oh yeah, flat earthers directly related to religion, which might conflict with what I believe. So I'd click on that, and then all of a sudden I'm clicking on the next one because I like this, creator's content. And then all of a sudden I see one, debunking the JWs. No, I'm not going to click on that one. I might not come back to this channel for a while or something, but eventually, because YouTube just keeps bringing them back, and I'm still looking at science things, eventually I was like, all right, I think it was, like, I don't know who the first person was, but I know I ended up clicking on both of Cedars and Telltale, and it wasn't long after the first or second video of theirs, I was just like, boom, going through all of them, going, holy shit, what have I missed? What have I been actively ignoring here?
During your childhood, did you take part in any kind of, like, I guess, Jehovah's Witnesses, like, activities? Like, I guess, like, how involved were you in the church as a child?
I was always conflicted about it. I understood things weren't quite the way they were being told to me, but at the same time, you're really forced into it. Like, really forced into it as a kid. And even if you're not actively wanting to do anything, you still have to go and do the door-to-door work. And so eventually you just concede from habit, and I decided to become an unbaptized publisher. I didn't want to become baptized because I knew basically what that entailed, or at least that it had a lot of things, that came with it that I didn't want to hold responsibility for.
Right. Well, I mean, what does it entail exactly? Like, to be baptized?
There are two different sort of things. There are sort of things that you'll be told up front, and then there are the expectations later. Basically, to become baptized, you really get indoctrinated in the way the organization works. You have to completely accept the hierarchy, I suppose. So, you have to, you really have to try in your everyday life to be the to be the exceptional witness. So in your everyday life, you're to be witnessing. Like, that is your sole objective. That is what you live for. And your whole life is devoted to Jehovah, but that obviously means the Watchtower organization, to be pushing their literature, to be pushing their message, to be recruiting more members and all that sort of stuff. Whereas when you're not in it, when you're not baptized, you're sort of, you'll still do all of that literature stuff, but it's really a side job. Like, nobody will take you seriously because you're not in, basically. That's actually it, like the in club. What are they? It's like the in crowd, like that group that has the ulterior motive, I suppose. Like, they look at the unbaptized as still sheep, as still people they have to convert because they're not dedicated to the organization.
Right.
And it's that dedication that is what makes them so dangerous, I suppose.
Well, so why didn't you want to commit that far with the faith?
As a child, my primary instinct was to be a child, whereas they had a notion of controlling your everyday everything. So if you're not doing your needs to live, you have to be dedicating yourself to Jehovah still. Like, you have to be doing some sort of Bible study. You have to be trying to learn more and get out and practice your preaching work or whatever it might be. They're very strict on that sort of thing. And I sort of had this feeling where I'm looking out my window going, like, well, why can't I use this time? Like, why am I even doing it? Like, I don't know. I'm a kid, basically. Like, I want to go out and play. I want to go out and have fun. I don't want to have to go to these meetings or to church. It's referred to differently with JWs as meetings. Like, you don't want to do any of that stuff. And from my point of view, I was always sort of figured that most people either didn't actually go to church, or if they really did, once a week sort of thing. Or they would just do their two times a week or 3 times a week, but they wouldn't do all their preaching work and they wouldn't do all the extra Bible study. It's like an extra level of homework you have to do. And obviously since then I found out, no, that's not true. There are other religions that do have to do crazy shit like that too.
Yeah.
But when you're a kid, you just want to have fun. I mean, it's pretty simple like that. And that was the major thing. But there were things within the doctrine, especially when I became an unbaptized publisher, that I was like, I don't get this. I don't get this. Like, I don't understand how or why women are treated the way they are in this thing that is meant to be written basically by God.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, why is he treating these different denominations of people so harshly when they are clearly doing nothing necessarily wrong, or nothing, you know, in his grand scheme of things, nothing major. He could fix all of this.
Right.
You know, like, even within the JW's point of view, you're like, okay, they die, but why are they now destined to death for eternity? Why are they not given the option of a resurrection like anyone else should be, like a second chance? If there's a God and he can present himself, kind of thing. You know, everyone should get that chance. And I didn't understand, like, that's something I battled with. And after I left, I was still like, hey, no, everyone can get resurrected, you know.
Yeah.
I sort of deluded myself.
So was the treatment of women, like, in the Bible, was that the thing that, not as a kid?
It was an accumulation of that sort of doctrine, like those sort of inconsistencies, where I was seeing the biblical scripture not aligning to what I thought would be an all-loving God, an all-merciful God. Like, I always taught that God is meant to be, or our God Jehovah is meant to be, a, you know, nothing and nobody could be as loving and merciful and, you know, gracious and all that sort of garbage. And so I'm like, well, okay, if he's that loving, why are we meant to be hating on the gays? You know, like, what? These real fundamental little things. But as a kid, I didn't understand it enough. All I was just thinking is, there's something wrong here. I want to go play. You know, like, it was a much simplified version of it.
Right.
It took years of growth to really understand that, oh, wait a minute, at least I was on the right track, going, there's something wrong here. The fact that they were pushing us as kids to do so much work, which would be child labour, I suppose. That would be more the fact of at a child that pushed me.
Right. So now, when I talked to friend Rear, which I think that you and him are kind of good friends, friend Rear.
Wow.
So when I talked to him, he told me about a lot of, like, child abuse instances when he was growing up, and how he, now looking back on it, definitely considered it child abuse. I'm just kind of wondering if you went through any of that in the JW organization.
I too know a bit about what Fenrir went through. I would definitely not try and equate it to what he went through in any way, really. I went through more an emotional abuse from the witnesses, and then emotional physical abuse from other people because of being a witness, but not any sort of abuse to his extent, or to, especially not some other people as well. I was very, very lucky that, I mean, I copped a lot of physical abuse, but that was from my non-JW parent, who, that was just because he was really old school and I was a cunt. Like, you know, what are you going to do? Like, I never connected that with any religion, see, but there was a lot of that for not going to, you know, for not being a good, like, I would make a big fuss and cry and temper tantrum whenever we'd have to go to a meeting because I didn't want to fucking go. And that's when, if, I would be making a big enough temper tantrum and mum couldn't get me dressed to go, that's when she'd just call dad. And dad would come in and he'd give me the flogging of a lifetime, and I'd just have to walk into the meeting, try not to cry the whole time, or just sit under the chairs and try and go to sleep with a fucking bruised ass every week.
Yeah.
But that was, again, I never, in my head anyway, I never directly connected that with the W's because that wasn't mum, but it was still for them, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I know with Friend Rear, he had like, if the child wouldn't quiet down or whatnot, regardless of age, they would take the kid into the back of the hall and basically beat them. So,
yeah. Well, yeah. So, because this is one of those things that I really do appreciate about these kind of talks, is that I will remember things that I've repressed, and I've done a darn good job at repressing a lot of these things. I even struggle, even looking at a picture of my old Kingdom Hall, I struggle to remember things that happened within it. But I remember that it was a very small hall. Like, I mean, two rows of maybe 20, and you could probably fit about 5 on each row. So someone else do the math. I can't. But it was very small, and you get the back doors, and behind that there's this one typical church pew that would be the full width. So what's it in feet? Maybe about 20 feet. I don't know. Guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Probably about 30 feet, actually. And that was the spot. And if it was, if you were only being a little, like if you're just crying or something and you won't shut up, they'll take you back there and they'll hit you. And they'll bring you back in. But if you really start, if you've been taken back there maybe twice and you still won't shut up, that's when they'll take you into the toilets, which they had to actually build this extra separate part of the building over there for toilets. So they could take you in there and belt you. And then, you're behind the microphone, so the people in the hall would hear the mic instead of you being behind the hall, where they would hear you screaming.
I really hate that. See, I don't know. That's, I guess, one of my big things that really, I guess, triggers me is hearing about people hitting their kids. So I that's one thing that I really can't stand. So I hate that you had to go through that, and I hate that Friend Rear had to as well.
Well, I think a lot, I mean, I don't know, what you might have had a wonderful family that never hit you, but I've experienced a lot of people from parents of a certain generation who were very violent, using that as discipline. And it was really ingrained in their minds to this day still. So